This is Between Hook Sets. I'm Jason Walter from In Through the Outdoors with my partner in slime, Kurt Underhill from the Fishing Crew.
What is up, dude?
Did you hear that slap when I set the hook? Did I just happen to? Did I get it on a drum beat or?
I guess I wasn't paying that close attention. I just saw your face like, uh-oh.
I went like that and something slapped. I'm like, what happened? And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. It wasn't here. There's nothing in my way. It had to have been you, but it wasn't you. Hey, okay, can I do this real quick? Because I messed up last week. So I think I called Daryl Peterson. I did not mean to do it. Daryl, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, talking fast, right? You're just throwing stuff out there. And because I was talking about Daryl's 14.5-pound walleye, which, by the way, absolutely gorgeous, and he's got other monsters on the wall there too. So Daryl, if you're watching tonight, thanks for watching, and my apologies to you. Didn't mean to slip on the Peterson. I truly in my head have Daryl Peters, but when you're a ding-a-ling doing live stuff, you're bound to make a mistake or 10. So
it happens.
Yeah, a lot of conversation about fish catching up here. There are guys that are out for a couple hours. They're getting their limits. They're catching big ones. Got walleye going to taxidermists, and everything's looking good here after a tough spring, right?
Yeah, I think it's starting to straighten out, and it's always June, right? I mean, mid-June is when it starts popping. I mean, we did the Highway Patrol tournament was yesterday, and they weigh 8 fish a day, so 16 fish for a 3-man team, and 56 pounds to win that tournament.
Oh, so how many day was that? Was it just
2 days?
1 day, 3 got 2 day, 2 day, 3. So a 3-man limit?
No, they weighed 8.
They weighed 8. Okay, all right.
Fish a day, so 16 fish for 56 pounds. So
okay.
Some very good fish coming out. They can go anywhere on Lake Oahe or Sharp. So I think everybody went up top, and it looked like a pretty good weigh-in. Nate was down there running that for us. So I was watching from afar, and it was looking good. So
that was that the big ones are up here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if we're I'm gonna do this real quick. I just because I got to do it. I made a radio edit of Tony Tone's "Hey Professor," so it needs to be on the radio. I'm gonna play it. I think I'll play it tomorrow because the National Walleye Tour starts at Bay de Noc, right? Let me give you a little taste if you've never heard it before.
Hey, Professor in the lab again.
So anyway, that's Tom's brother Tony. Tony wrote the song, but Tony didn't sing it. So it's a pretty cool tune. I think you can hear it on Tom's Facebook page. I've got it on my Facebook page, and then hopefully it'll hit the radio here. But let's get into tonight because we got to talk about some winning up here in Mobridge. This should be a ton of fun to chat with some guys that are big sticks, right? I think everybody knows that.
100%. Hey guys, how we doing?
Good evening.
Good evening.
What do we know? This is a little awkward having you two on together. Usually you're competing head to head. Now you're together. So talking to Chris a little bit earlier today, and I was like, have you guys ever fished together in a tournament?
We fished a tournament together 9 years ago. I think it was like a small association event on Lake Sharp. I think we went to Marion's and a few other places, but Tyson and I are like basically the same person, right? We're both extremely passionate, extremely competitive. At some point we drifted together. I think, Tyson, do you remember when you called me and asked me if I wanted to do this one?
Yeah, like it's funny before? because we both wanted to do it, and Dewey's over at Bay de Noc, and we've got mutual friends that we usually fish with and whatnot, and we're like, man, we both want to do it, but we're both really short on time, and we just decided, heck with it, we'll get in and do this. But Chris and I, we go way back since he came to town, and it's kind of funny. We're all mutual friends. You know, his main partner, Ben Brown, and I and Chris and Dewey, you know, we kind of partnered up last year in the NTC down at Pickstown, and Chris found us an awesome place to stay. And so, you know, I know Chris has actually fished down on Francis Case, you know, pre-fishing with Dewey a few times too. And so we've kind of got some mutual connections there. But no, Chris and I have been hunting and fishing buddies since he came up here. And it's funny, like you say, Kurt, we have done a lot of competition together, but there is that fine line of friendship, and we know which areas we can cross and which areas we're respectful of, and it you know, it works out. You know, Chris is a great angler and a good buddy too. So hopefully it's mutual there, Chris.
Well, I think it makes for a great story. I've had a ton of people ask me who you guys are and where you're from, which to me says we've got a bunch of new walleye fishing fans, right? Because you guys have won Gov Cups, and that was the kind of the fun of it. Well, they've won Governor's Cups before. Oh, so they thought you won it together. No, they won it separately, you know. and so there's this little bit of naive in some of the fans that were at the weigh-in, which to me is fantastic, right? You're in our world, you're both fishing celebrities. That's the way it is. Your names are household names, but not to everybody, which honestly you have to admit a little anonymity maybe isn't such a bad thing, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I had a ton of fun, and like I said, I remember the first time I met Tyson. I was at the Downs Marina dock, trying a new propeller on an 18-foot boat. I had my wife and our daughter at that time, I think, was 1 or 2, and Tyson offered to back my trailer in, help me dock, park the truck, and do everything we needed to do so my wife and the baby didn't need to get out of the boat. And then he proceeds to tell me why that's probably not the right propeller, that I should try something else. And then got me pointed in, right. And that was the first boat that I ever owned was 10 years ago.
So, okay, I want to hear the propeller story then. So what was, did you just have the cheap old aluminum?
Yeah, I think I had like a 3-blade, you know, Tempest type deal, and Tyson got me pointed to a smaller 4-braid Bravo, and you know, he talked RPMs and rake and cup, and I still don't know what most of those things mean, but he got me pointed in the right direction.
Don't let Chris Haines fool you. He's like he's a pretty sharp dude.
Yeah, I still think it's crazy that, like, you know, growing up around this world, knowing Tyson pretty much my entire life, being this walleye fisherman, jumping with all these different guys he's fished with over the years. And then this lonely little Chris Haines shows up one day, and I'm like, who is this guy? And I remember talking to you. You were pretty frustrated at like Sharp Showdown because you were like bridesmaid. You were a bridesmaid for like 2 years. And I said, it's your time. And then that year, I think you won the Gov Cup. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, and I thought you'd been fishing for years. I just didn't know you. And you're like, yeah, I bought a boat after I saw the rumble on the river one time go flying by and said, I got to get out there and do that.
That's right. Yeah. I never fished much before I moved to Pier, maybe once or twice a year. And like I said, I was walking my daughter down the sidewalk during the rumble on the river, which happened to be Tyson's wedding day. We like learned that 2 years later. He wasn't in that tournament, but yeah, said I had to get in it. And the reality, I mean, there's probably nobody that's made me better than Tyson, and you know, not because he like gave a bunch of stuff away or told me what to do, but the number of tournaments that like I've come in short or thrown winning fish back because it wouldn't be enough. I mean, like the 2022 NTC, like Tyson and Dewey got that one. The MWC after that, I led that one the first day. Tyson got that one. I mean, I threw multiple fish back that would have been plenty fine, you know, to win if he wasn't in that one. So every year it was just like more, you know, to try to compete.
Would you end up second in that NTC?
Third. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Fishing Crew boys took first, second, third, and fifth.
Yeah.
And like 8th and 13th. Like we had a good showing.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to watch you guys, and then to see you guys compete together was not the first time, but on across our stage, the first time watching you guys compete together, and little to no practice.
Yeah.
Story of our lives anymore.
Yeah.
I tell you what, I've never made it to Mobridge so fast in my life. Chasen, when we got up there for the rules meeting, he's like, come over and talk to me. I think I had like 5 minutes to go, and I got out. Well, I'm not going to tell the crowd how short of time I made it to Mobridge, but I made it with 10 minutes to spare. But let's just say I didn't leave myself much time getting there. So, and then fortunately, Chris had some time on Friday to get out. But like Chris said, boy, you know, that it seems like every year it's tougher and tougher. I remember when I used to go fishing 3-4 nights a week after work and do all that. And fortunately, those times on the water are still memory for the food bank. You know, you put the feather in the hat and you've got that knowledge and wisdom tucked in the subconscious. But yeah, this is a short one, but luckily Chris made it out for a few hours and got us some starting points. So.
Yeah, Tyson had a few left over from the NWT. He gave me a few points to start. A lot of those areas, it seemed like maybe had started to fizzle a little bit. You know, we had talked through them, and I checked on a couple stuff, and we thought, like, boy, Tyson, I just feel like, you know, this direction is just going to be nothing but hard decisions. We're just not like seeing enough of those 30 inchers. We kind of had refocused a little bit. And, you know, when I told Tyson, like, you know, what I saw Friday and where we needed to refocus, he had 3 or 4 things, you know, that never got looked at until the day of the tournament. That, you know, luckily one of our big overs came on one of his, you know, history type spots. But it was just enough, man. And Kurt, you know, Tyson and I, there's probably not 2 or 3 more people that probably prepare more for a tournament than Tyson and I, right? If we don't have like 4 or 5 days to pre-fish, we're probably not going to do it. And this 1 day of pre-fish stuff, we left pier at 4:30 in the morning and like jump in the truck and like look at Tyson. I was like, this feels weird. I feel so unprepared for this.
Yeah, like
the good thing about those.
When I saw you riding together for your championship dinner at Dairy Queen, I was like, did you drive up, Tyson? And I didn't realize he drove up for the rules meeting, drove back to pier, and then rode back. I was like, where's your wife's car? You're like, oh, she's working. I'm like, but you brought it up here. Like, I'm so confused. So, yeah, you literally came up for a rules meeting and blew back to pier just to get up in the morning to come back. And I mean, you guys signed up one of the last teams to sign up, and you guys just winged it. And that's the thing. Like, we talked the rules meeting a little bit. You know, it's a little different now with forward-facing sonar from back when, Tyson, you were fishing, you know, and Chris, you probably started. I mean, you're pretty much, you know, your 10-year of fishing has pretty much been live scope around. But back in the day, you had spots, right? And, you always had your spots that you went and you had to find the fish. Now you still have spots, you have areas, but it's like you find the fish, and if they're not there, you just leave. You know, and it's kind of changed the whole how much pre-fish goes into it. And your guys' experience practicing for, 4 or 5 days on a tournament, how often in most tournaments are you fishing that area? Still, you're finding a structure probably, but are you fishing the area that you're like, this is it, we're going to fish here for the next 2 during the tournament? Or is it you're finding a pattern and moving?
Go ahead, Chris.
Oh, I mean, I think pre-fish, you're finding just a general zone in the lake, and then you kind of progressively try to dial it in. A lot of pre-fishing, I think you're working on presentations, getting some confidence. You're definitely trying to develop a pattern, and I need to be a better, probably pattern fisherman. That's one thing that I think forward-facing sonar allows you to do is, like, you see a fish and you see a spot and you think less of why it's there, or at least I do, and I need to get better at this. But before, you made decisions to be someplace because of the conditions told you to be there, the wind, watercolor, all this stuff. Right now, you kind of just drive around till you see them. And when they're there, and they're there, right? But I mean, the best ones still do pattern fishing. But no, I mean, for me, for pre-fishing, you're kind of developing a pattern. But generally, Kurt, like if you're doing a 5 to 7 day pre-fish, probably what you're doing on the first day is not going to be there in 5 days. I mean, it's going to phase out.
That's the crazy thing from where I'm sitting. I'm always listening to people talk, right? And when you've got somebody that's up, first place, second place, third place, these big tournaments, National Walleye Tour, perfect example. Practice was this, practice was that. Well, practice is never what it is on game day. So what's the point of practicing? And I realize that you got to get out and pre-fish, but do we spend too much time? Do we over prepare mentally by pre-fishing, or is that still, is that really a necessary thing these days?
I think, I'll chime in here, but I think the biggest confidence booster for me, I get anxiety when I'm not out there. I know that Lake Oahe and a lot of these bodies of water, it doesn't matter if it's just Lake Oahe, but walleye fishing in general, I think you need to be more nimble now than ever. The fish are ever changing. You got to move on the fly. Heck, we're moving on the fly minute by minute or hour by hour, trying to hunt down these fish. And another thing you got to remember is these big fish are constantly moving, and you're looking for the right ones at the right time and the right mood. And in order to do that, you got to be on the move, and you got to be looking for the right marks and the right postures and the right attitudes to make things happen. And the pre-fishing is very important to me, just because I build that confidence, just being out there, being on the lake, knowing what the water temperature is doing, knowing what the wind is, how it's driving different, water colors and currents and etc. But on the other token, I said this to Chris driving up, a guy back in the day, like you said, Kurt, you had spots, you had waypoints, you didn't get the full picture. Even though electronics were good with 2D and with side imaging and etc., I remember when we used to drive around until we marked one, just flip it right out the back on that mark, and that was as close as you could get to fishing on the screen as it was at that point in time. But I think one thing that a lot of pre-fishing and getting your mindset on spots is, okay, we're going to go here, and this is where we're going to go, and we're going to catch them. I can tell you what, out of 90% of the tournaments that I've ever fished, none of them have come easy, including this last one. But out of all the tournaments I've fished, you're clawing and fight until the very end to get those bites. A lot of times it doesn't come easy. But I think one thing that less pre-fishing does for you is allow you to be more free and nimble. And if you go out there and you're saying, I'm just going to go with the flow today. I know enough in my mind and with knowledge to go out there and just be free, read the graph and see what I see, and I'm just going to keep moving until I run into what I'm looking for. Most of the time you will, but you might run out of time. That's the biggest. I always tell people they're always biting somewhere, which they are. It's not always dead everywhere, but whether you get them or not, it's just a matter if you have enough time to find them in that time period, And so I think having that pre-fish time is definitely a confidence booster. You get areas and zones that you can dial in on and then be more efficient with your time and connecting the dots. But there's also something to be said about fishing freely and not getting caught up in a plan, because 9 times out of 10, the plan changes by the minute or by the hour when you're up there.
Well, and now that brings me to a question, Tyson, maybe for you and maybe a little bit for Chris, but do you think some guys are taking too much confidence and getting rid of, the water clarity, the current, the temperatures, and they're just fishing what they see on their graph and not putting the other puzzle pieces together with the new technology?
That all comes into play, and it's very important. That stuff there can change by momentarily. With the, if you have wind coming up and it might be sweeping a mud line in or sweeping a mud line out, that can change by the minute. I'll never forget this in that Sharp Showdown that Max Sheets and I fished. We had that big rain. You remember that, Chris?
Yeah.
That huge rain.
It wiped out the entire side.
Yeah, we were fishing in an area, and literally the mud line was moving out by the minute. And I started in, and we were pitching in on the edge of this color line, and within the hour, I actually looked at my cursor on my track, and I actually moved out 400 feet fishing the same school. Usually I'd never be way out where I was. I never just pull out in the middle of the river and fish, because they're typically tucked into, a current seam or whatever. This is on Lake Sharp, by the way, but those fish are riding that color line out. that's just an example. But there's all of these fine details that come into play that you recognize that with time on the water. Somebody can't tell you, go look for this, go look for that. But with time and effort and all that out on the water, you tend to start piecing these little bits of puzzle together. And I guess all of those things, the details come into play always, no matter what. So
yeah,
I know Chris is a huge details guy too. So
yeah, it just, you think about that, like everybody's like, well, you just fish the fish where they're at now, and that's what you do. But I mean, you're still seeing fish that don't bite, and it's not because they just want to. I mean, is that because what factor's making it other than they just don't want to bite? We're going to find the next one.
Well, that was specific to this tournament too, right, Tyson? You remember, we started in our first area. We had watercolor that was super similar to practice, and that area, northern Oahe, it's not dirty, but it definitely has more of like a tannic or brown tint to it than the lower end does. It's not blue right now, but our first spot had good watercolor. There was a lot of life there. I think Tyson, bombed out and caught like a 19 3/4 that we didn't really expect to come from there. But we transitioned in the spot, really 2, 3, and 4, and we bailed on it extremely quickly. Like that was probably some of the cleanest water you had seen all spring up there, Tyson.
Oh yeah, I mean,
we had a change in northwest wind the night before.
Yeah, on the NWT, like in the over the course of 2 days, this really threw a lot of people for the loop. But I was telling Chris about it. Over the course of 2 days, we went from 3-foot visibility to 5-inch visibility across the entire lake, and that was one thing that really put a wrench in things, because not only did you have to put the baits right in the fish's nose and be absolutely perfect, but then you're bouncing in waves and you couldn't be as accurate as possible and whatnot. But then clear water, on the other token, plays a role in that. Like Chris said, if you get ultra clear water, there's kind of a fine line there on the water clarity where they kind of give up their guard a little bit per se, or I don't know. Maybe it's just a little something that allows them to be a little bit more aggressive. But it seems like really dirty and really clear. It's like, oh boy, those could be some variables to deal with.
So do you think we blame that on low water? I think we were at 1598 and a half, 1598 and 6 inches, but you got moose flats coming out of the water. So you got all that silty stuff that's just every wave that hits, it's pushing it out. Blue blanket, same kind of thing there, not as drastic as moose flats. So I can understand why the color of the lake around town would be stained, So the further south and further north you went, did you see a little clearer water, or was it just absolutely stained all the way down?
Are you talking for this last weekend here, Jason?
Right.
No, there was areas and pockets where you had certain watercolors, and also, different parts of the river has different current moving. Yep. A lot of people don't really think about that with the reservoir, but the water's moving, and it pulls that different color and whatnot into different areas. But Chris was very, very perceptive, and I know that he picked up on that in a couple of the areas right away. You pull in, you drop over, like, holy cow, like we moved 2 miles here and the visibility went to 5-6 foot versus 3 foot, and it's you'll find those little pockets here and there that kind of have those differences.
So does that dirty water translate to you get out in the main channel and you're working some of the flooded timber? Does that translate down 60 feet, 30, 45 feet maybe? I guess we're down quite a bit. So the top of the trees are 35, 40 feet. Yeah, right. I mean, who knows, right?
Right. It was out about that one. Generally in the spring, when you see a sharp color change, you'll see temperature associated with it. And when I said, whoa, it's clear here, and Tyson goes, well, what was the temp yesterday? Like, he asked me right away after that, which you generally, a lot of people don't pick up on that immediately. And it's only like 3/4 of a degree different than where I left it the day before.
Okay.
But I mean, you could see, and when people talk about forward facing sonar, you can pick up on a fish's attitude so much quicker. We probably cast at 4 or 5 fish, and you immediately knew like the attitude wasn't right. The water's cleaner. It did not take long to, yeah. Like
blow.
it's not as I think it's underrated for a decision making tool. Everyone thinks it's this magnificent big fish catching tool, but you also make decisions so much faster.
Makes sense. So do you think sometimes you make decisions that are too fast and you leave fish that you might be able to drag out of neutral or even negative into neutral and finally get them to go? Or do a lot of guys waste a bunch of time on the wrong fish?
I think it could go either way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, I've been burned both ways, fun fishing, tournament fishing, etc. You can sit on them and then you'll hit a bite window, or we've all been there too, where, you go through and you find the school right away, and the first time you drop or you pull over them or you cast, depending on your technique, usually they'll rattle a couple off, and then all of a sudden, boom, they go lockjaw on you. Okay, I don't know if that's due to the fact that you pick off the active ones, and then they see their buddy Bob get yanked out, and they're like, well, we better cut down.
I swear they talk.
I don't know if that's the case or not, but I think it can go both ways. But a lot of times, I know a lot of us fish similar, and Chris is kind of an aggressive run and gun type of fisherman too, and you can shoot yourself in the foot on that, or you can progress and then find the right one too after several attempts. It can go either way. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't, but it's all in the approach that you believe in. And I think whatever your confidence and wherever that's at, I think that's what a person needs to go with. If you want to grind them out, some guys just grind them out and they make it happen, and other guys run and gun and make it happen. So I don't know what the right answer is on that, Jason.
Does anybody? I know I'm an antsy fisherman, right? I will throw jig and wrap and throw it and throw it and throw it, and if I've got nothing, I'm on to a blade bait, I'm on to plastic, I'm on to whatever stupid concoction that I could create, because I'm like, well, if they're not going to go at this, they've seen everything else, I'm going to make something they've never seen before, and I always come up zero.
I've seen it firsthand where I look back and go, what do you have over the side of the boat? Like, what is that thing? I don't know. It worked in Winnipeg one time, so I'm going to try it here. He's got a earring tied onto a crappie rig with a shiver spoon on the bottom of it.
Yeah, well, and that's the crazy thing. You never know, but I guess that there's a difference between tournament fishermen and regular fishermen, and there have to be things that you guys have learned, whether it's from each other or learned from hours and hours and hours of practice, that do make you guys different from the regular guy like Kurt and I or whoever, or Gene or whoever's going out fishing. It's just interesting how you guys can come up a zero too, right? I mean, you can miss fish and come back with one or two, and that is altogether possible. But I wish you could tell us the difference between just a regular person fishing and a tournament fisherman. Is there a lot of attitude and confidence that goes with that, or is it a ton of practice and time on the water? Versus like a guy like me. I haven't been fishing for 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, and then I expect to go out tomorrow and catch fish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the biggest thing that people don't understand. I mean, I might be getting off track here a little bit, but I think there's a misconception on tournament fishing. Just due to the fact, a lot of times when people say, well, how many did you catch today? Or, how many numbers are you going through? When you're fishing a tournament, you're not going for numbers. You're going for the right ones. And
right.
We had a fellow come up and ask us, how many overs did you go through today? And Chris and I were standing there before the awards, and we kind of looked at each other, and we didn't really say much, but it's like, we're not just fishing every fish that we see. It's a waste of time to do that. And the thing about it is we're trying to fish the right fish, and 9 out of 10 of them or 25 out of 30 of them are not going to bite. And that's just the way it is. And truly, it's getting tougher and tougher every year. There's more pressure. There's obviously more that get taken out every year. And these fish tend to adapt and condition, I believe. And it's definitely not like what it was, 4 or 5 years ago. It's not even close. But the biggest thing about tournament fishing is finding those right ones and targeting them. And then, like you said, and anymore in Oahe, I think southern Oahe is different than northern Oahe, but anymore you have to have big overs to compete, and you have to have good slot fish. There's no if somebody has them or somebody's going to have them no matter what. So if you're going to this to have fun and fish and catch fish, that's fine. But if you're going to win, your strategy is totally different. And you got to take those chances of letting fish go that most people would never let go. They might come back and bite you. I've had that happen a lot, but then you might replace them. Like that one that Chris caught. I mean, we had a really good over prior to that one that was, what was that fish? Was it 27 or 29 inches, Chris? I can't remember.
Yeah, it was over 27.
Yeah, but anyway, it was like, didn't even hesitate, threw it back. And there's a lot of people that wouldn't even think that's in your right mind, just to not even hesitate.
We didn't even discuss it. Yeah, we didn't even discuss it.
But the thing is, we know it's living out there, and where my anxiety comes in is I know it's living there, and if I throw one back and I don't get it, well, dang it was still a good decision. But they're there, and you have a chance at them, and if you make it click and you make it happen, then it's going to work out. And I know I've always had the mindset of, if you can beat the fish, you can beat every fisherman. I'm not worried about the fisherman. I'm worried about catching them
that are all worried about fishing tournaments and like, oh, we got to fish against Chris or Tyson. I said, no, you're fishing against the fish.
Yeah,
the fish are the equalizer and everything here. And yes, they may win more, they may do these things, but they can stumble and they can make the wrong decisions, and they can make the right decisions, and they may not be the right decisions at the end of the day. But that's how this all plays out, And if you go out there worried about competition, because I guarantee you, neither one of you guys get in the boat in the morning and take off and go, "Ooh, we're worried about those guys." Mm-hmm. You're worried about
the big walleye biting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. You got to worry about yourself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tyson and I talked about this on the way up. I think when a lot of people see a win, or they see like 28 pounds, on the scale, I think they have this vision that, like, we were sitting at Mobridge at 10:30 waiting for the scale to open. It was already done in the first hour and a half. And the reality was, we didn't exactly have that tournament won at 2:00, did we, Tyson?
I think we put the last two in the boat with 15 minutes to spare. And one of them was a 15 1/4 incher, by the way. But it was so funny. I got to tell them the story about when you put that one on the tape and we threw it back. And then like a half hour later, we're like, oh God, what did we do?
Yeah,
tell them how big that one was, Chris.
Yeah, I won't say the measurement, but it was a pound. We were, yeah. No, and we can back up too if you want to talk about the overs, but we strictly targeted overs till, I think, the one, Jason, do you remember what time that one was? At about 12:30.
It was 1:15, 1:30, because I think we got back at just about 1:45, and it was slow going back, right? It was not easy to get back. So it was probably 1:20. I guess I could look at my phone and know the exact time, but
it was after 1, Chris, for sure. Because I know we only had an hour to fish for slots.
Okay.
We hadn't even touched them yet.
I think we were riding a little high on the 12-pounder at that point. We pulled up to our first slot spot, and it wasn't as good as what we left it, right? And I think we had short of 15 inches, but the Denny in particular, that one allowed 14-inch slots, which is just crazy. Everybody's talking about 3.5 pound slots that Tyson and I were going to keep this. But no, a 1 pound slot came across at 1:30, and we were a little overconfident, tossed it back. And for the next hour and a half, we regretted it. I mean, at that point, it was north wind at 30.
30.
Water coming up. Yeah, water coming over the front of the boat. Like, bilge pump wouldn't stop running, and we were short 2 fish.
Yeah, and that so like a half hour in after that, Chris and I looked at each other and we're like, oh yeah, we got an hour here, an hour and 15 minutes, and we're going along, and like we take a pass. And we come back and we missed a couple, and set the hook, yank. At this point, we're baiting for slots, and they come off, and all of a sudden you look down, it's 2:00 and we're like, oh man, we're getting close here. And then you start regretting it. And then, we got 2 extra tags to play with, and we've got 3 fish tagged right now, so anyway, so then we went into hyper mode with Chris's energizer pattern, I'll call it.
Yeah. Yeah, we wanted to bait our slots. It just wasn't working. And with the wind change, it shifted color away from where Tyson had seen the slots a weekend before. And we just kind of looked and said, like, hey, I've got, I don't know, Tyson, remember, I had like 6 things on the way back to Mobridge that I was like, there were slots on all these. We're just going to have to rampage through them and just hope we get them, start heading back. And I didn't catch a single slot doing that, which was odd because I was in the front of the boat. I couldn't really see them because all the herring was shoved all the way up on the bank. I could occasionally see a pod, but Tyson caught every single one of them casting sideways out the boat in that 35-mile-an-hour wind sideways. I don't know. I don't know how he did it, but we got 3 slots in the next hour and a half on the way in.
Well, yeah, that whole shoreline on the way back, because there's no point in fishing really the north shoreline at all. So everybody, I think, the entire field for the most part was hanging on that south side where the wind was just blowing into it like crazy. So tough fishing all the way back to town.
Mm-hmm. Well, we were right in the middle of it. I know, Chris was up front, and I was like literally jumping when the waves would roll over to keep my feet dry as they'd come in the back of the boat. But anyway, it was quite the experience, to say the least. And then the funny part is your guts in a wrench. There's nothing that makes me feel more alive than fishing a tournament, because the highs are so high but the lows are so low. But then here we are, we're like, oh man, we still need to get a couple more. We got 20 minutes or a half hour, and then you get them. And then you're like, oh, man, we're so fortunate we got them. And then we start talking. We're like, man, if we're going to lose this, it's because of them 2 slots. We got a few minutes. We need to keep going. And and then we ran out of time. But the waves were unbelievable. I don't even know how Chris was even keeping his feet. Well, he didn't keep his feet dry at all. He was dumping water out of his shoes. But every other wave was rolling over the front of the boat, and he was just holding it. And I tell you what, we just had to power through it and fish till the last minute. And that's what you got to do sometimes. It's never easy.
Well, and I tell people, a guy weighs this on day 1 and then they don't weigh shit on day 2. And I'm like, well, in this day and age, we're chasing slots, we're chasing overs. And if you don't get them overs or you spend too long on them, your slots aren't going to matter anyways.
Yep.
So it doesn't, if you spend too long chasing those overs, you're in a bind, right? It happens. It's probably happened to both of you in different tournaments where you spent way too long trying to get the over to go, and then you don't have time to get your slots.
Then you're out of time. Yeah. Then you're out of time.
Right. Unless you're lucky enough to catch 2 14.5 pounders, right? That you want to talk about coming in the right order and perfect. Can you? Then the thing is, they're out there, right? I don't know how many are left out there because we've had a ton caught, right? And we're, you think about that, and I guess I'd like to know your thoughts on that as well. We've got all these big fish that are, that 12-pounder you caught, 20 years old, 18 years old, something like that. And those fish are aging out day at a time down there. But the cool thing is you look at all of the year classes. Do you guys, because you're out there more than anybody, do you feel confident in those year classes, the 24s, the 25s, 26s, 27s? Are you confident that they're going to become 10-pound, 12-pound, 30-inchers?
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I still feel like there's a lot of 27s and 28s. You do get common over years, and right now it does seem like there's a fair amount of 27s, 28s. We'll see what happens to the herring. I think that's really the key to it. I do feel like I'm seeing less herring than I have previous years. Someone told me that the smelt eat herring fry, and that could have a lot to do with it. But as long as we can keep a good mix of herring and smelt around, I feel confident there's enough of the 27s to 25s. maybe we think there's not as many of those like 30 pluses, but I think the reality is we're not catching as many of them as we used to. I mean, what Tyson and I were seeing in like 2022, and we were fortunate to get that deal figured out really early. I think we were just catching so many more of them than we are now. But we still see a lot of them.
Two things of that, and I want Tyson's opinion on that. Like, or Tyson, tell us your opinion on the year class of fish. Then I got a question that I want to ask about the fish.
Well, I'm not a biologist, but I know you mentioned something about the age of that 33 incher, Chase, and I've had Bob Hanton Jr. actually age some scales for me on some fish. I've plucked a few off on some big ones, and he's done his studies, and he's actually counted the rings on the scales, almost like a tree. And you cut a tree down, you can see the annual rings and get an approximate aging. He said it's it's give or take a couple of years, on the accuracy. But I've had him do a few of those, 32-inch fish, and they came back anywhere from like 15 to 19 years of age. So I mean, they're mid to upper teens. I just know from what he shared with me, that's where they're at. I tell you what, I'm sure there's a lot of it that goes into their food source too. But the herring, it grows them fast, it grows them thick, and not to say that smelt are a bad forage base. The nice part of it is with the shad, the smelt, and the herring, you've got a forage base there for all different sizes of fish, and that helps with the overall health of the system. But I guess on the big ones, I'm probably more worried about the health of the reservoir and protecting the big fish out of anybody, just because I just love them so much. I've got a lot of respect for them, but there's heydays and everything, and it's all about cycles and timing, and I've never imagined to see a cycle or a timing like what we've seen the last several years up there. I think a lot of that is just due to the fact that technology has exposed certain things that nobody knew about, and it is probably living there for a long time, and now we're tapping into it. The next question is where's it go from here, and what's the resource going to do, and how is it going to adapt? But I think that has something to do with it. I think there's been big fish up there for a long time, but nobody just really knew how to find them. But now the thing that people really got to think about is we're knocking on their front door, and we're in their bedroom now, and we're in their home, and it's different than it was years ago. But I surely hope that we
always hear about the heyday of the 90s. The first thing when I got up to Mobridge and Chemnitz is like, it's like the 90s again. Like the other day, fishing was like the 90s, and I'm like, man, if we always hear that was the heyday. Tyson, you fished this body of water in the 90s. Would you compare this to the 90s? Good, better, or same?
Well, I started guiding in the mid to latter 90s, believe it or not, up at Sunset Lodge, and I remember that's when I can't remember when they put the length limit on, but back then, your average is like 20 to 24 inches, and that was just pulling a crawler around, and whatnot. But I think all of this stuff goes in cycles, and there's just a lot of things that affect the resource and affect the timing. And one thing you got to remember is it takes, let's just say 15 years or 18 years to grow that fish, and to go from a 27 to a 30. I don't know what the timeline is on that, but it isn't next year that a 27 is going to be a 30. You're talking slow growth rate at that point, probably, and another 3 to 5 years or 7 years, or however long it is. I don't know, but the good news is one thing that I've noticed is if you go up shallow and you pull bait, you're catching everything from 8 to 20-inch fish or 22-inch fish, and there's a variety of them. I also saw a deal the other day. I don't know if you guys saw it, with the GF&P stocking 3 million walleye. I mean, how awesome is that?
Yeah, it's fantastic. This year they went from Sutton Bay down to Core, so they all got dumped south. Which whatever, who cares? 3 million fries, 3 million fry, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So I don't. Sorry about the long-winded deal there, Kurt, but I think I don't know. I think we got to roll with the punches. We saw it in the mid 2000s or whenever it was when the limit was 14, and there's all these little skinny seagars out there. You're filling the box with 14 to 16 inches that were a pound, and there's all of this cycle and change all throughout life, and I think we're lucky to be alive and lucky to be walleye fishermen right now.
Well, you know what? Think about those fish in 2006, 2007, 2008. Those are the big ones today, right?
They
probably.
Said, we had Finsel on last year. We talked about state record being caught and all that stuff, and he's like, that was the 08 year class. We had, historical low in 08, and then it came up, and that spring it flooded. It raised up, and we had all the flooded vegetation. When this body of water comes back up, because it will, we've seen it this low before. We've seen it lower. I don't mind it being down like this. That vegetation, I mean, look at all the willows on the shoreline. Look at all the grass. When this thing fills back up, what's our hatch going to be like? What's our bait going to be like? We're going to have so much bait source in here. All the perch will blow up. All the crappies will blow up. All that hanging fry, stuff will just absolutely explode in the system when the water comes back up. I'm fine. Like I tell people, another 2 years of being low, then we're going to have trees on the flats to pull again, I mean, right. They all went away,
Yep. Oh, yeah. No, it's just all of those things that, come into play. And like you say, we get a big, big rain, or just get some of that stuff that comes up, and then here we go. We're off to the races again.
We do have a question. It says, what is the life expectancy of a walleye? I mean, none of us are biologists, but I'd say that high teens to maybe low, pushing 20. I mean, you talked to Bob quite a bit. I mean, that's probably the high teens is about the life expectancy of that fish.
Yeah, I think I don't really have those answers, Steve. Thanks for asking, but I think high teens around that 20 mark. I think there's still 101-year-old people out there in the world, or 105, but you're getting pretty slim after 85, but I think you're probably right on point there.
Yeah, I mean, I remember a couple years ago, Brian Dahl caught one in down in Chamberlain, and the biologist took the orris out of it and aged it, and he said it was like 21 years old. And he's like, we tried to get it back, and he's like, guys, you can revive. We can put it in oxygen. That fish is dead. Like, no matter what, if he wouldn't have caught it, it wouldn't have made it, through this year. It was gonna die. It was just, I mean, it was a 101-year-old, on oxygen, trying to get just a few more days out of itself, and it. So that's the thing. Like, people get all mad about catching these big fish and killing them, and I'm like, do you want them just to die in the bottom?
No, I want to see them.
That's what they're gonna do.
Right.
That's eventually what they're gonna do. And I will tell you, you two guys probably protect the resource as good, if not better, than most people, because you care about it.
Yeah, they pretty much all go back unless we're fishing with you on the weekend, Kurt.
Yeah. Smelt Forge has fish. Yeah. And maybe that's true. I don't know. We're not biologists, but yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. But my question before we got into all the fish stuff is, do you think fish get used to a pattern like a jig and wrap? I mean, because when that first came out, first started really popping and everybody knew about it, you threw a jig and wrap within 5 feet of a fish and it came and smashed it. Now it's like you got to pinpoint its nose and almost surgically insert it in its mouth to set the on it. Like,
the insertion is getting a lot more prevalent nowadays, Chris. You got to put it right on the nose.
But I mean, do you guys think they just get used to a pattern? Like, they've seen so many jigging wraps that they're like, nope, we're not hitting a jigging wrap.
Honestly, I think you got the vibration, you've got the movement, right? Fish survive on vibration, correct? I mean, that's how they sense movement, etc. So you've got that jig and wrap doing what it's doing in the water. It sounds the same, jig and wrap after jig and wrap after jig and wrap. So, Tyson?
I just think they adapt to people pulling up and dropping on them and people casting at them. And, I just think no matter what the strategy is or the presentation over the course of time, I think that they pick up on that. I think more so is just, I'll just use this as an example though, but prior to any tournaments, say that the Governor's Cup or any big tournament, you put 100+ boats on the water for a week, you can have a suicide bite on the front end of it. And by the time the tournament comes around, you're like, I hope we can get our 5. And I know Chris has said that a million times too, but boat pressure and constant, targeting and whatnot through time. I mean, those fish will reposition, leave, go down, they tend to vanish miraculously. And I know we see that all the time when you put a lot of pressure on them, and it really changes the mood. And then a week or so goes by, or 2 weeks, and all of a sudden here they are again. I think they adapt to those types of things, and especially with technology nowadays and everything like that. I think they pick up on that. I mean, you got to remember they've got a pea-sized brain, but they still adapt and they still survive. Cool. I don't know. I know Chris kind of shared some things with me down on Francis' case, what he saw with pressure and things like that in years past. And I tell you what, I don't know if every fish will say, oh, I've seen a jig or I've been caught on a jig that looked like that, therefore I'm not going to bite. I think at certain times of the day when they're in the right mood, you're going to catch them. And the other 70% of the time, if they're not in the right mood, you got to move to the next one that's going to bite. But I definitely think that things play into that and their attitude over time. I mean, what would you say, Chris?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of factors. I do think they start to get conditioned to some baits, but since the jig and wrap craze took off on Hawaii, we've also seen an exponential explosion of bait, right? So now we have these like super narrow bite windows, and you can say the jig and wrap's over or it's still here, but you go up there in August and nearly everyone is offshore, right? Well, when you did that 5 years ago, there was only a handful of people offshore, so there was no transducer noise. There wasn't as much bait. I can't say that it was entirely just a new lure, right? So I think it's a ton of environmental factors, a ton, including fishing pressure. Mm-hmm. But
yeah, I mean, we always joke, Tyson, you're a big goose hunter. We always joke like the geese fly out really low the day the season's over, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or the day it's before. Like they know it's, then all of a sudden the next morning they've never been shot at, but they fly 2 miles high compared to flying 200 yards high,
Or this, they from January until February 15th, they come out at 4:50 in the afternoon, right. and then on February 20th, it's like 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah, think about it today. You could take a picture of a buck in the ditch today. You could pull right up to it, stop, take a picture. You're 75 yards away, whatever. It's not like you can reach out and touch them. You're not getting that close to a buck in November to take a picture. Even I'll drive by pheasant coming home, and they're right there in the ditch, and I'll stop and I'll snap a picture. That's not happening in October. It's like they know. It's crazy how animals
they're built to survive just like we are. So they do their survival tactics. But we didn't really touch much on the Mobridge tournament. I mean, we kind of touched on a lot of stuff, but we got about 7 to 6 minutes left. Go through kind of what you guys went looking for in your strategy on that event.
Do we have the video, Chasen? I can't believe how much traction that's got.
Yeah.
Is it 25,000 views now?
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Here, I'll tell you what it's got on my page.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was we pulled up on you guys, and you were chasing that fish. You weren't hooked up yet, right?
No,
you were still working
you must
on
have
that.
cut the video in half, I would think.
I did. I did
okay.
because it was, I had it quite long and we're bouncing all over, and
Right.
I shortened it up right to the point where you netted it. And
yeah, I think that particular spot, I guess we'll call it, we didn't get there till midday. We hadn't looked at it yet that day, right, Tyson? And we were kind of just doing a quick stopover before kind of getting back into our other rotation spots. And I just said, like, hey, we got to look real quick. It'll take us 5 minutes. And particular area we had just seen, I saw a couple what I thought were, big ones sitting there the day before. Didn't cast at them, just got a waypoint, just left them alone. And there was one left, and Tyson and I were joking, about the spot, and it was like, oh shoot, that's wish that wasn't on video, whatever. But I said, well, there's nothing there. Like, there was 2 there on Friday, there was 1 there on Saturday. That spot might have had 50 boats on it the next day. There's nothing there.
Yeah, honestly,
one on the X deal, and I waypointed the day before, didn't cast at him, came back, and I mean, luckily there was 1 left. And I don't know if it was the same fish, right? Sometimes I think you waypoint a single fish and it just happens to be a good branch or a good rock pile, whatever the case is. But we pulled up on that one. The first one was blank, second was blank, third one I swung around. And to show you like how particular Tyson and I are, Tyson had just got off a rotation of being on the bow, and he had put his settings in on the Lowrance prior to that. And so when I jumped on, it was just you run yours a little hotter, don't you, Tyson, than I do?
I don't know. I just set it where I wanted.
Just did it till it looked right. Yeah. Right. So I look and I look over, and I thought it was a carp at first. Like, the fish was sideways to the forward facing sonar. I thought it was a carp, and I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Shouldn't be any carp out here yet. And then the fish turned with the beam facing away from the boat, and I could see how long it was, could see fin detail, the whole deal. And I told Tyson, I was like, hey, there's a mega donk here. I made up mega donk on the spot. Never said it before. And he goes, hold him back. And before he got the second hold him back out, then we were hooked up. You guys were sliding in. It's kind of when I started yelling, like, hey, stay back, just give us a minute. Tyson marked the line on the boat. I had to stay on the pedal because we were into the wind to make sure we didn't run over top of the line. He made an awesome net job. It was a ways away from the boat, and I mean, it just worked out. The
funny part about that whole thing is we were sitting there, and like Chris said, we went through there, and it was like a luck deal because we went blasting through, looking nothing. Chris spun back with the wind. He's like, I'm just heading back over here, and then we're out of here. And like, it was like one of them gifts from God that was just like sitting there, it's like it was right place at the right time. Here's a single fish, at that time. But when we repositioned in the wind, I looked up and I saw this boat coming. I'm like, what are these guys doing? And Chris was just nose down in the grindstone, and you guys were coming. And at this point, I had no idea who it was. And you're coming along, and I'm like, oh my God, they're going to come in right at the time of exactly when we're trying to do this. And we were waving you off and saying, move over. And then, Chris hooks up, but yeah, you can't make that deal up. That was just kind of a Hail Mary, I guess you could call it. Right place at the right time.
Yeah, that was altogether a Hail Mary deal. Brent, we were just out cruising shorelines, checking boats, and turned on you guys. And once we got on, you're like, oh, well, that's Chris and Tyson. And then you said, hold up. And I was just looking at the boat. I wasn't even looking at you guys, just watching them. I'm like, well, wait a minute. They're working on a fish, and then boom, there's the hook set. Like, oh crap, that just happened right now in front of us.
So the mayor figured out what happened. He said that Brent's boat scared the fish
into butt.
Yeah, that's probably right, because we got denied by about 40 of them the last hour, and then scared it out.
We figured out the technique that Brent's boat scared the fish into biting. So
we'll go with that.
One last meal before this motor comes by.
Right.
So we're getting to our hour time. I want to ask you guys both. We started asking this question, and we'll start with you, Chris. If you could fish with 3 people just one more time, Who would that be? They could be alive, they could be passed away, they could be somebody you want to fish with.
Like I only get to fish with 3 more people.
Who would you spend? Who would you get? Who would your Mount Rushmore of spending time in the boat with be?
Number 1 would be my grandpa Albert Theory. He was the first person to ever let me drive a boat. He got to an age where he couldn't get out anymore, and I think I had to help him go. I know he's with me every tournament. I just feel it. I wish he could see what fishing is and see what it's become, because that's not. We used to go down to like Elm Creek or the Bronix area down Lake Francis Case. He had a 16-foot Mr. Pike, and never had much for a boat, but it meant a lot to me that he gave me a chance. And then of course my dad. Obviously him and I are super close, and he got me started in fishing too. It wasn't much when I was a kid, just a couple times a year, and then probably my brother. Obviously family's first on that stuff. He doesn't get to fish much. Miles fished with me in that 2022 NTC. Had never seen a jig and wrap. He flew in the day before the tournament because Ben couldn't be there, and he fished for 3 days in that deal, and just couldn't believe what fishing had become. But those are my 3.
Perfect. How about you, Tyson?
Oh, I can't narrow it down.
That's why I started with Chris, so you can have some time to think.
But the wheels are turning. No, I'm just going to leave it at this. I was very, very fortunate at a young age to have mentors take me under their wing, and I've been really, really fortunate to fish with some awesome people. A lot of people that took me fishing at a young age, and that helped me develop from a young child. And I can't narrow it down to just 3, but I will mention a few names. Some of the very first guys that took me fishing and I started tournament fishing with was Kurt Volz and Rich Keeter. They took me all the time at a young age. My dad, I fished with him when I was younger, and all the way up until he passed. It was almost like a role reversal. I took him fishing even when I was young, but we went to Jeff Jurgensen, Max Sheets, Garrick McCumsey, Dwayne Jelm, Chris Haines, Brant Becker. All these guys, there's a lot of them that have taught me a lot of things over the years, and I've learned a lot from them. And my dearest friendships are people that I've met in the outdoors, whether it's hunting and fishing. And I can't narrow it down to that. My mother, she took me at a young age, and I'd say if I had to really break it down at this point, besides the names that I mentioned, I'm sorry if I missed anybody that wasn't on that list, but
Tyson, we both missed the same. We both failed to mention our wives.
Well, that's where I was going, Chris.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Go ahead and finish. Sorry.
Because right now, I think the biggest thing for me right now and it's the hardest thing, is spending time with my son in these young years. And we all know you can't go out there with the tournament mindset with a 7-year-old.
Nope.
It's a totally different thing. But if I had to go back and just pick a couple, I think I'd put my time in on my wife and my son, and do it that way, and try to make him even better. I don't know if he's going to have the desire that I had at a young age and throughout my entire life, but he'll be the one to decide what he wants to do. And I just hope to expose him to those things. So
he's going to take my job.
Get right on.
I think it'll be more so that than the fishing side of it. But
yeah, I think he'll take my job. I think he'll be a great fisherman, but I'm nervous when he, a few more years, and he'll be like, just give me that mic and you go sit in the back corner, old duffer, and I got this.
That wouldn't be such a bad
but
thing.
Chris and I are both really fortunate. Our wives like to fish, and I know my wife Janelle. We fish tournaments together and fish sunrise to sunset back before we had Preston, and she was my fishing buddy. And I know Chris has fished a bunch of tournaments with his wife. He's fortunate that we're fortunate to have wives that support us, and I will say this, that encourage us to do it, and that's really awesome.
Yeah,
fantastic answer.
Yeah, like I said, I knew when I asked that question, I started with Chris because I knew what you were gonna have to think a little bit. You've had pretty fortunate people to spend the time in the boat with, so it's kind of hard to who's the 3 people you'd fish, if you could fish with. That's a tough question for anybody, and let alone, with like your repertoire of people that you spent time with on the water. So is there anybody, let me ask this for both of you, is there anybody that if you've never fished with, but you'd like to spend a day in the boat with?
Bo Schilling, maybe?
There you go.
He's a little phenom.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah, he's coming. He's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
So the funniest thing ever, here Bo and I, we exchanged some texts, and it's funny. I got to know a lot of these guys through Dewey too, and he's a dear friend of mine, and we've learned a lot together and whatnot. But I'll never forget the Governor's Cup. I think Chris and I were standing there, and some guy walks by, and after Bo weighed in over 30 pounds each day, the guy goes, "Well, now we got to deal with another young one," and he just kept walking right by, the up and comers.
That's a good problem. I like it.
Yeah. We had Jeff Kelm on, and I asked him, have you seen a rookie class like this ever? Because I can't remember a time in at least NWT history you've seen this many young guns out there tearing it up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Really doing well. Hats off to them. It's just that's awesome. They're ahead of the learning curve for their age. I can tell you that.
Yeah. So, well, guys, we appreciate you. Congratulations again on the win. Thanks for taking some time out of your night to jump on with us. And like always, we'll see you guys here in the very near future. We got Home Builders Tournament coming up, not this weekend, but the following weekend. And then we're closing the door on the Gov Cup.
Right around the corner.
It is. It's coming quick.
Well, thanks for the time. Thanks for talking walleye fishing. Congratulations to you.
One more thing, not to take up much more time, but I just want to tell you guys, thank you for all you do. I can only imagine how much behind the scenes work there is. Like you said, Chris or Kurt, the new trailer is expedited the setup and pickup process that you have now. But your whole team is great people, and most of the time they've got smiles on their face, and ultimately you're putting on these events for things that fuel us and allow us to do what we love to do. And it's a team effort, and just want to tell you thanks. And then all the people that host and everything that goes into that. I know it's not just a show up and leave thing. It's a year-long planning and endeavor. So thanks a lot to you guys for all your efforts as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for
I'll add
you
to
guys
Jason, the media side that's been added the last couple of years since Jason joined the team has been awesome too. I know everybody really appreciates. I love going back to those. And Kurt, you lost a bunch of stuff off Facebook, but I love going back to those old clips and interviews.
It's all on YouTube though.
Okay. I love going back to those.
Yeah, YouTube always got it.
Yeah, Facebook.
We appreciate you.
About a year ago, they decided to start deleting after 1 month. We have no control over it, and it's like, this sucks. So
YouTube.
Yeah. Well,
all
thank
right,
you guys. We'll see you soon.
Congratulations. Thank you much.